Kellyanne Conway, who is Trump's advisor, was on the Sunday show talking about Medicaid cuts under Trump care. And it's pretty interesting. Let's watch.
You are currently in Medicaid. If you became a Medicaid recipient through the Obamacare expansion, you are grandfathered in. We're talking about in the future. You know, Obamacare took Medicaid, which was designed to help the poor, the needy, the elderly, the sick, disabled, also children and pregnant women. It took it and it went way above the poverty line and opened it up to many able-bodied Americans who should probably find other, should at least see if there are other options for them. If they're able-bodied and they want to work, then they'll have employer-sponsored benefits like you and I do.
Kellyanne, hold on.
So her response to the over $800 billion in Medicaid cuts that's going to happen under Trump care, she basically says, get a job. I'm independent, but this is why I love Republicans. They can't help but view things in such a narrow-sighted, myopic way. You guys need to look at this from a microeconomic perspective. Half of the U.S. is making $30,000 a year or less, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because the majority of the jobs available don't really pay that much. You have so many poor people in your, so many working poor people in your country. Minimum wage is not a living wage. I know people personally that are working full-time jobs and are barely making enough to survive. You have a lot of jobs that don't offer healthcare for employees. And this nibba Kellyanne Conway is telling people to get a job when in reality these people already have jobs, but they're jobs that don't offer healthcare for them. I've never met anyone as stupid as this woman, and they're like, Obama expanded Medicaid. A lot of people get it that shouldn't. Yeah, as if he didn't expand it to 133% of the poverty line. That means you have to make $28,000 a year or less, where the poverty line is really low. And I bet you can even make double that amount and still be in poverty once you calculate everything you have to pay for. So her argument is people that make $28,000 a year or less don't deserve Medicare. Oh yeah, because I'm balling out with my 24 or 28 grand a year, right? It's not fair. Maybe I should just get a job. These people have jobs, but they don't offer health care, you fucking idiot. From my personal experience, and I know not all Republicans are like this, but from my experience, Republicans have a really hard time putting themselves in other people's shoes. But let's go back to how stupid Kellyanne Conway is really quick. Here's a clip of her response when being confronted about President Trump's inappropriate tweets. Let's watch.
This obsession with covering everything he says on Twitter and very little of what he does as president.
That's his preferred method of communication with the American people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Really, Kellyanne? Because when you spoke with Seth Meyers on January 10th, you said this.
Wouldn't it be great for you personally if he tweeted a little bit less? No. Just for you personally.
No, actually, the answer is no. I think his Twitter platform, like his social media platforms in general, Seth, they combined 45 million followers or so on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and it's his way to communicate directly with the people.
But wait. Oh, what am I saying? This woman is Trump's advisor, right? I guess we got to take her word for it. But let's get back to healthcare, which, by the way, has been officially defeated in California. But wait, there's more. It's been defeated because, wait for it, a Democrat. Look at this. Here's what it reads, quote by quote. Hopes of single-payer supports across the country were dashed Friday night when the Democratic Speaker of the California legislature killed a single-payer health insurance reform bill written by California Democrats. California Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon announced Friday afternoon that he was holding, I guess, on the bill to bring universal single-payer health care to the most populous state, effectively killing the bill for at least the rest of 2017. The Healthy California Act by Ricardo Lara D. Bell Gardens, and Tony Atkins, D. San Diego, passed the California State Senate 23-14 last month, but will now be denied a similar floor vote by the state assembly. So Democrats didn't vote this down, but this one dumbass comes in like, I'm not even going to allow a vote on it. An idea that over 80% of Democrats support, by the way, and over 60% of the country supports, and even a percentage of Republicans, I forget how much, but even a percentage of Republicans support it. So this is a very popular ideal, single-payer healthcare. This Democrat in California says, oh, well, I'm just going to stop it. And the majority of Californians are Democrats. And this nibba expects these other nibbas to vote for him. They told you what they wanted and you said, nah, I'm not going to do that. And then you complain after they don't vote for you. See, this is why I have a problem with corporate Democrats. They pretend like they're progressive and liberal and they talk the talk, but for the most part, they're always lying to you. The only difference between a corporate Democrat and a Republican is at least the Republicans don't even pretend to support single-payer healthcare. And this is why this so-called Democrat isn't supporting this. Let's read this from International Business Times. This is what it says. Since 2012, Rendon has taken in more than $82,000 from business groups and healthcare corporations that are listed in state documents oppose the measure, according to International Business Times review of data amassed by the National Institute on Money in State Politics. In all, he has received more than $101,000 from pharmaceutical companies and another $50,000 from major health insurers. In the same time, the California Democratic Party has received more than $1.2 million from the specific groups opposing the bill, and more than $2.2 million from the pharmaceutical and health insurance industry donors. That includes a $100,000 infusion of cash from Blue Shield of California in the Wanting days of the 2016 election, just before state records show the insurer began lobbying against the single-payer bill. So a corporatocracy with these phony Democrats is basically what this is saying. So money in politics is the #1 issue that Americans are facing in their country because it affects everything. You're not going to have legitimate thought out legislation to address problems in a country until you get money out of politics. That's the only way. We need people to fight for the right things and start representing the people. And that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about in this video. It's where I got the title from. Let's talk about it. These Fox hosts were discussing Medicaid cuts and what the death toll might be due to Trump care. Let's watch.
So in order for this to work, I think you need bipartisan support. I think you need Republicans and Democrats.
Don't count on it.
I'm not counting on it.
But it would be nice.
But it would be nice.
Yes.
When you listen to something like this, you realize that's asking a whole heck of a lot. Take a listen to this.
I know this is a sensitive issue, but I'm going to raise it. And that is that the horrible and unspeakable truth is that if this legislation were to pass, thousands of our fellow Americans every single year will die.
We do know that the many more people, millions, hundreds of thousands of people will die if this bill passes.
1,000 to 2,000 people will die if you cut 750,000 people from Medicaid. So that means you're killing 1,000 to 2,000, killing them.
All right, Ebony,
That's rational.
How are we going to get to the middle here and fix this problem if we have Democrats, Pelosi saying, Hundreds of thousands of people will die if you go with the GOP plan.
Well, they obviously all read their DNC talking points memo this morning. Also, quite frankly, I think Senator Sanders would be better served worrying about his own legal and pending problems, quite frankly, and really shouldn't be the messenger on this.
Thousands of people, Bernie Sanders says, Pelosi says hundreds of thousands, Kennedy, Schumer says, hey, 1 to 2,000.
You know what? At least they're not employing any hyperbole at all. So no exaggeration, no hysteria. You know what the crazy thing is? We're all going to die. And they can't predict. There's no way, unless they're absolutely psychic and have a party line to heaven, they don't know who's going to die or when or how many people. I mean, that is such a fool's errand trying to quantify something that serious and grave.
Oh, really? A fool's errand? Of course you can quantify how many people are going to die from not having health insurance or access to basic health care. They do it all the time. There's a Harvard study that said 45,000 people die every year in the U.S. because they don't have access to basic health care. So you know better than experts at Harvard? Is that what you're saying? And the funny part is, these nibbas didn't even rebuttal anything. Notice they didn't have any counter arguments. They just acted cute and stalled. The Democrats say people are gonna die. Yeah, right. So are you gonna make an actual argument on how the Democrats are wrong, or are you just gonna laugh and tell them they're wrong? It's just like Trump saying, wrong, you're wrong. And then we're just like, okay, how? Explain. No explanation. Why? Because they don't have an argument. And they act like the Democrats aren't pulling from actual studies, like they're just pulling shit out of their asses. Which, to be fair, one of the women that spoke there, Nancy Pelosi, if that's how you pronounce her name, was pulling out of her ass, which isn't surprising because she's a low-life corporate sellout who said hundreds of thousand people. It's not hundreds of thousands, come on. Actually, before this bill, there was already 45,000 people dying every year because they didn't have access to basic health care. And this was under Obamacare. Obamacare was a failure. What we need is Medicare for all. That's what we need. But 45,000 people were already dying yearly under Obamacare. Under Trump care, another 28,000 people are going to die added on top of the already 45,000 because they don't have access to basic health care. Because when you kick people off of Medicaid, most of the time what people do is they'll have a problem, not a big deal, minor. They say, I'm not going to go get checked out because I can't afford the medical bills. Then typically whatever that problem was gets worse. Then they have to end up going to the emergency room. AKA their deathbed. This happens all the time. I remember they covered a story about this in Florida. They rejected the Medicaid expansion and this woman didn't go get checked out for something, which she would have if she was covered. She told her friend she couldn't afford it and wasn't going to get checked out, and guess what? Later she died. So yes, you can quantify this stuff, you fucking idiots. And these are the same nibbas that cried about death panels under Obamacare. And now they're like, ha! Death? What is death? Death doesn't happen in the healthcare debate. But wait, when the Republicans brought up the death panel thing, they were lying. To them, there was this panel that decided when to pull the plug on your grandma. Completely made up bullshit. The death panels weren't from Obamacare. They came from the fundamental private health insurance system. The private health insurance company. They make the life and death decisions. There is no government official under Obamacare saying, we don't think you deserve your care. But there are private health insurance people that do that because they have to make a profit. I even think that the so-called death panel bullshit got lie of the year, by the way. So when Republicans make up bullshit, they're fine. But when Democrats make an actual argument and pull from an actual study, you laugh at them. And the best moment in that clip of all was when Kennedy said, oh, you know what's crazy? We're all gonna die. Thank you. Thank you for your brilliance. Why are you in politics? You should be having coffee with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And the funny thing is, with that smile on her face, you know in the back of her mind, she's like, oh yeah, Ben Shapiro thug life status. I sure told them. I said we're all gonna die, therefore it's okay if we live in a fucking apocalypse and we pass a healthcare bill that doesn't actually give people healthcare. And then she said it's a fool's errand to try to quantify deaths. No, it's not. No, it's not. In fact, you're the last person that should be using the word fool after basically saying, who needs healthcare? We're all gonna die. Then she has that look on her face like, I'm so brilliant. No, you're not. You're fucking stupid. All of you are fucking stupid. You know what's the answer for healthcare, America? The quote-unquote far left answer, which every other modern nation has, a fucking single-payer system. You need a Medicare for all system.